This is Power Athlete Radio. With your hosts, Denny K, Professor Booty, and the Luke Summers. And now, toes forward, hips locked, shoulders set, and retract those scapulars. It's time for some knowledge bombs.
Power Athlete Nation, what's up, dude? This is freaking the Tubular California intro for episode 41. I'm rocking with Callie, my man Tex, Luke Summers, Professor Booty. What's happening?
Just hanging 10, Denny.
Oh my god.
Got Cowabunga.
Cowabunga is Ninja Turtles playtech.
Take space than you.
Aren't they from California?
Cut Playtech some slack. He's freezing in Georgia. They had their first snowfall in 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
Denny, it's no joke. Seriously, we got about 2 inches of snow, and the government shut down. The school, happy for me, I'm off of school for probably the next week. And you would think that people were not able to obtain any kind of sustenance because I went to the Walmart today and there wasn't a single item of food on any shelf.
You do food shopping at Walmart?
So don't judge, Tex.
Every time I'm in Walmart, it's like I look and I think of those people of Walmart pictures, and I'm like, man, you know.
Denny, keep your fantasies to yourself. Okay?
Yeah. First of all, I get excited when I think of those. No, but I always wonder, like, man, I wonder if, like, I'm one of those people of Walmart. You know what I mean? Like, am I going to see a picture of me at the checkout line standing next to some weird dude or what?
That's like
Denny, if you have to ask, you are.
That's when
I'm trying to be open.
Denny.
All right, seriously, though. I mean, even though the government shut down, nobody really even noticed, right? Except they didn't get their mail.
Yeah, I guess we won't get mail. I don't know. I had Spencer out in his little truck today, and we were, like, doing donuts in the yard and having a snowball fight, and, you know. But, I mean, it's like 11 degrees. It's not that cold, but you would think that people were dying down here. But here's the thing. We have, like, maybe one plow and, like, a wheelbarrow full of salt for the whole state. So it kind of is a big deal, I guess.
Yeah, you have absolutely no snow removal, right?
None. Not at all. Nope.
And then I'm sure people just do not know how to drive in the snow.
Oh, and that's the thing. I tell all my friends, like, you know, they're like, oh, you're from up north. How do you drive in the snow? It's like, don't worry about how you drive. You just got to worry about how all the dumb Atlantans drive. Because
go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, because, you know, everyone's in a hurry to get home, and they've never seen ice, so they think it's wet, and the first thing they do is hit their brakes. They don't know how to downshift. Oh, it's horrendous.
Yeah, we went snowboarding in Big Bear Mountain like a month or so ago up in California, and it's kind of the same thing. I mean, snow removal is just a challenge there because it's one winding road going up the mountain. You know what I mean? And then there's all these neighborhoods off the primary highway, but you got to throw in tire chains. And, you know, tire chains give a false sense of, I don't know, control in the sense that it's kind of like four-wheel drive, and it'll help you accelerate. It helps you go. But, you know, everybody skids and stops essentially the same deal because you just start sliding. So when we were driving up there, you know, it's the same thing. It's like, I'm not worried about me, I'm worried about them.
I'm
sure
surprised that you weren't adept at driving the snow because all you do is drift.
I was drifting around in my girlfriend's little 2004 Hyundai Accent. E-brake is the best way to drift up a mountain is with the e-brake. You don't double clutch or pump your clutch. It's just because then you compromise gas fuel efficiency. But my buddy who's driving, it was his first time ever driving in the snow, and he had white knuckles like you wouldn't believe. Like he was squeezing his steering wheel so hard, like the fucker was about to fall off the steering column. But I can't say with confidence I felt like we were going to make it, but we ended up making it, so that's a good thing. But so Steve, Denny, it really is funny, like not being. It isn't a big deal to us, but you have people who like it's the first time they've ever driven on snow. The next thing you know, they're fucking sliding off the road into trees and telephone poles.
Right.
Yeah, no, so on the way home from the gym last night, I left the gym last night. It'd been snowing since about 1. I don't know, I guess around 7:30 we left. And on the way home, I saw about 12 cars on the side of the road. And, there was no accident. They just didn't know what to do. The person in front of them hit their brakes. They panicked, hit their brakes, and everyone just goes off the road. Kind of ridiculous.
We're going to start a driving course. And we'll go to different states, and we'll teach them how to drive in horrible conditions.
Good luck with that, Denny. Good luck going into somewhere and saying, hey, I'm going to teach you motherfuckers how to drive.
Yeah, I'm up for the challenge. All right. Luke?
What's up?
Any good news coming out of Power Athlete headquarters?
It's always good news.
Nice. Premium content?
Well, probably the best piece of news is it's bittersweet, really. Tex is now back in DC. He had to take off and head home. He's got he's hitting up a 9-month internship where he's going to work with Rafael Ruiz and rub Raf's back and feet while he rests in between classes and clients. So it's bittersweet in the sense that, me and my girlfriend finally have our bed to ourselves. Tex isn't in the middle anymore. But at the same time, no one's making me breakfast in the morning and it's making my coffee. So I got to do it myself. So it's a little bittersweet.
A 9-month internship down with Rafael. Dude, you got to be fired up for that.
I think it's more of an apprenticeship. A lot to learn.
Semantics. It's semantics.
But I still get to travel on weekends for CrossFit football certs, so I'm excited to just kind of bring some knowledge, some nuggets back to these guys.
No, in all seriousness, I mean, Tex, go off a little bit on what you're planning on learning from Rafael. A little background on Rafael. He was one of the guys who helped get CrossFit football started. He was one of John's strength coaches while he was in the NFL. And, the best part about the synergy between Raf and John is they had this. They agreed on certain things and disagreed on other things. And Raf's more about movement quality, movement prep. Get you prepared before you lift heavy weights, and then John attacks it, preparing for movement by lifting heavy weights. But Texas has interned under John and us for hundreds of hours, let alone worked with us for hundreds of hours. So go into what you're trying to get out of the internship with Raf.
Definitely the biggest things that I'm thinking of right now are the primal movements. So we talk about them. I know everyone's read about it on our Power Athlete article. The vertical, horizontal push and presses, the squats, the lunges. So just kind of getting the background of where that thinking came from. So, and assessment tools, kind of applying assessment tools to full teams. I know we got our tools just based off of running seminars with 15, 20, 25 people, but kind of how to effectively implement that to 50 athletes at one time, get what you need, limiting factors, and then building programs around specifics for each athlete, but keeping the same kind of team stimulus going, and then the mental side of it. So his big thing is kind of training in the condition that you're going to be in for whatever it is you're training for. So whether that's football, whether that's swimming, or whether that's kind of tactile combat. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I know Luke and I discussed a little bit about it, but Raf calls it state-dependent learning. We found it in a wormhole of super training, so it was cool to kind of get a preview, but just an all-out kind of mental, physical, whatever it takes to developing not only movement, but also that mental aspect of athletes.
That's awesome. Plus, I mean, moving down to Tampa Bay doesn't hurt either, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting out of the snow, I got to drive through Georgia to get there. So.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be lucky if you'll be able to get through.
With all the shitty drivers, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Denny, I need a lesson.
See, there's my first customer. 5 minutes into announcing it, I already got one signed up. That's how we roll. That's how we roll. Dude, I kind of feel privileged to the first CrossFit football seminar I was at. Roth was part of that, and I remember him just putting us through all his freaking, like the warm-up protocols and stuff like that. Just crushed us.
Yeah, and our current warm-up catalog, that was strongly influenced by Roth, and John and him were 100% in tune on primal movement development, and it being the foundation of athleticism, sport, fitness, whatever you want to compete in, whatever you want to break down. They are components of the primal movement patterns, and it's developing competency at the ground level. And then once you develop that competency and you're good, you look dialed, it's time to stress it. And really, where Roth's magic comes in and where his creativity lies is his ability to stress a movement pattern. Like, he thinks of the craziest shit that you wouldn't, that no other coach would figure out. So that's what's super cool about the working with Raphael.
Cool. All right. Do we got our guest on yet?
No, we're still working on it. That's why you had a little silence, trying to get him some instructions. But let's just barrel forward, Denny. I mean, in terms of anything else, all the other stuff coming up through Power Athlete, we identified a couple software packages that was going to be the foundation of our back end, but it turned out we had some compatibility issues with other things we were doing. So right now we're just trying to find those software packages. But what I am going to do is post a couple teaser components on what the programming is going to look like, on what our instructional videos are going to look like, and I'm going to give a couple of ways so people can see what the hell we're talking about, and you can look for those in the next day or two. So that's one thing I'm super stoked about, and I'm excited to to get this stuff out there through Power Athlete HQ.
Awesome.
Cool.
But so Denny, you sent me a couple emails about you were the Juggernaut competition that you guys hosted.
Yeah, dude, very Occupy Strength themed. This is the second year in a row that we've done it. We call it the Juggernaut contest, open to the public. Max rep power clean, squat, deadlift, and bench, and then we do some sort of conditioning at the end. This year we did 2. Last year it was just 1. It was like a prowler sprint with an Atlas stone. And this year it was more like farmer carry, double under, kind of like more CrossFit-y. But I've seen some common faces from some of the other seminars and events that we've done in here or in the area. And one of them, Dave the Bull, who's a regular commenter on CrossFit football, him and some of his athletes from Chicago Elite Fitness came up and participated, and he crushed a 600-pound squat, and that's one of the videos that I sent you. That ended up giving him first place in the heavyweight division. And the last time I personally saw somebody squat 600, I went to a powerlifting gym a few weeks ago in the area called Monster Garage. Mm-hmm. Pretty good athletes over there. And then, of course, A. Bell squatted that 600 at the Power Athlete Team Series.
Yeah.
Like it was nothing.
So here's the thing. Dave the Bull was at the Power Athlete Team Series too. And his squat was like a real wide box squat kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. If you look at this video, he shortened up his stance, the bar sitting higher on his traps, not so much of a low bar back squat, and he freaking nailed it like it was nothing. So I asked him, why the change? And he said that he's been following CrossFit football programming a few months before the Power Athlete Team Series, but after that it kind of really sat well with him, and he's just been on that, adding a few accessory work here and there, but bringing in his squatting stance into more of how CrossFit football wants you to squat. He said it felt a little bit more comfortable for him, and what was June, July, August, September, October, November, 6-7 months later, he's able to add like 50, 55 pounds to the squat.
That's
That was
insane.
a pretty good testament to the program.
Yeah, that's. There's.
Just okay.
It's decent, No, congrats to him, man. 600, a huge milestone. That's super cool. You didn't compete, Denny?
No, I was one of the judges. I was one of the judges in it.
You didn't want to win it. You don't want to take it all.
That's pretty much it. I mean, it really wouldn't be fair. So, I'll judge and give people pointers and kind of meet some new faces and correct everybody in their bad positioning.
Good stuff. Hey, any other good stuff happened on that competition? What were some of the other numbers, Danny?
Well, we had some women who deadlifted 360. Whoa. Some of the heavyweight women. There was a lightweight, I think, was 120 and under, and a lightweight woman put up a 200-pound bench. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's legit.
That's way legit, and that's like 2 times body weight. Yeah, almost 2 times body weight. And then it's funny, dude, because you see some pretty shady technique in a lot of the strength, and then when those same people go into like high rep conditioning, it like that technique's gone, or that bad form is gone. It's like everything's really good when you're moving lighter weight fast, but the minute it gets a little bit heavier, they're crumbling over, they're rounding their back when they're doing some of the heavy pulls, and like that really stuck out when I was watching and judging. I was like, damn, man,
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think that when it gets heavy, there's a difference between heavy and then there's a difference between emotionally in the mindset that you have to get that PR, and you can still maintain good form when the weight is heavy. But I think that in these situations, people are willing to do almost literally like whatever it takes. And so, yeah, I mean, when you're in a meet or something, you're gonna see some pretty heinous shit.
Yeah, and you got to figure the heavier the load, the more it's trying to break you, right? So there's a few ways that we stress movement patterns and position, and only really high heart rate's just one way you can do that, right? So let's say, for example, David Bull squats 600 pounds, right? Let's say we loaded the bar with 500 pounds, and we have him do like Fran, and he hits like a 3-minute Fran, and then we have him squat reps at 500. How do you think his form's going to look? I don't know. Maybe he fucking breaks down. Maybe his elevated heart rate stresses him enough where he starts to, he can't even look good under 500 pounds, where he would smash that had he not had that elevated heart rate and pre-fatigue of 95-pound thrusters, which is, lightweight for a guy like that. But so like what we're finding and what we're experimenting with, and this is Steve, this is kind of what you and I are doing right now, is like this pre-fatigue or perio-fatigue approach, using like an Airdyne or using rowing or using a different movement pattern, or if you're loading volume correctly, the same movement pattern, and you pre-fatigue that so that with that elevated heart rate, you look good at higher loads. And that's just one way to, again, improve your ability to withhold or withstand stress through a movement pattern. So, Denny, it's funny. I'm in the process of writing a little blog post about lightweight and how everybody looks good under lightweight. It's when the weight gets heavy, if you can look good, that's when it counts, type deal, because it's transferable. If you look good under 600 pounds, you're going to look good under 400 pounds, type deal.
Right.
So
yeah. Well, and it's when you look at some of the best Olympic lifters, their warm-up sets look almost identical to their max effort sets. It's like the same kind of principle.
Wow.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So what else do we got? What are we moving into?
We got some. We're gonna go over some grip training and we're going to talk about some CrossFit Regionals prep.
All right, well, let's do it. Let's talk. Cal, you want to talk here about your grip strength article?
Can we do the inquiry first?
All right, yeah, let's answer the question because we're just on the verge of getting Bobby.
We might be able to get Bobby on here, but I would hate to start and then move on to something else. So can we do the inquiry first?
We got an inquiry? What do we got?
Jared Michael asks, love the show. I was wondering if there's a chance of doing a poster discussion on the best way to deal with high school sport coaches and parents. For example, the know-it-all dad who was a bodybuilder in the 80s. Or a high school coach who played a sport at blank university, blank college 20 years ago. Typically, they know more than you do. At least that's what they tell you. This definitely may be. They may be knowledgeable, but do you reiterate to them that what we are teaching is appropriate for their athletes and children? Maybe the question is, what is the best / easiest / most effective way to show these guys that what we are doing is the way to do it?
That is the $1 million question.
So, and then he goes on to thank all the Power Athlete team does. You're welcome. This is a truly amazing resource. It's true. That's a very true statement. And then you guys appear to be the best-looking podcast crew.
His words. His words.
So, all right. So let's talk about that. I mean,
we all have experience dealing with these types of coaches, right? Parents.
So, who wants to go first on this one?
Man,
I got it.
Right. Yeah.
So I've coached high school sport. I coached high school lacrosse, and then I coached college lacrosse, and then college S&T. And why I went towards college is because I hate parents. So coaching on the sideline, having them just yell at you for calls or plays or saying their son's not getting in, that just grinds my gears, as Luke would say. But the best way that I've gone about talking with them and approaching them is kind of talking to the kids. Like, what are you training for? What's their end goal? Do they want to go to college and play? What are their strength coaches telling them on the side? So if I give them dogmas, and that's posture and position, everything we're preaching, and if that coach ever tells them anything other than posture and position, or they ask them to get into a position that's going to sacrifice that coach is wrong, but they're still your coach, and you need to say, yes, sir, and just do it like I taught you. So dealing with parents, it's almost like an ego stroke. Just say 20 years, you played 20 years ago, what was the coaching like, blah, 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 and then just say, this is interesting. And then a line I love is inform through education. So talk to them about what they did, say that's great, and then try to teach them best you can what you're trying to do. So they may think they know best for their kid, but I mean their kid may know better than the parents, like the experience or the situation they're in. So I mean just talking with them, getting the parents' perspective, the athlete's perspective, and then even going out of your way and talking to the strength coach. So I mean it's communication is the bottom line. I can't give you one way that's going to work, but talk to all three people involved and see what you can come up with to try to help the athlete, because that's really all that matters.
And there is, I mean, it's kind of an individualized scenario because you're going to have to read people. I mean, sometimes you may have to risk being a dick and losing the business, but you may not just tap through to the person. You could sit them down, and you should hopefully have the science under your belt to sit someone down and prove to them, the way you're applying your volume and your intensity is most advantageous to sport. And then not only that, but disprove the concepts that they have in their head. So like if a guy came to me and he's like, oh, you have to test body weight squats. I would say why? What's the physiology behind it? What adaptation are you trying to drive? And then I would listen to that answer. Now depending on the answer, you're going to have to either debunk or agree with that person. Okay, so is there merit to a body weight squat within sports? Yes, no, perhaps. But at the end of the day, what really matters is performance. And what are the biomarkers for performance? All right, we need to have someone who can dynamically displace a load along the vertical plane. We need somebody who can change directions. We need somebody who can run fast, jump high. Okay, these are all product of posture and position. So yeah, maybe body weight back squat is the way to go, but it shouldn't stop there. We need to keep stressing an organism, right? And then you can show him all sorts of science that shows that whether the adaptation is central nervous system or efficiency or hypertrophy and muscle growth. Those are the two components that are going to help generate power, and those are dictated by maximal loads and proper loading and proper volume. And there's all sorts of science about this, and we've done the research. You yourself need to do the research so you can combat that, or go to the seminar. We break it out for you. But I mean, that would be the best way I would approach this thing. Is if it got to that point, you have to have the nuts and bolts to back it up.
I mean, that's just it. If they're telling you that they know more than you, and that happens to be true, well, then you're fucked, So it's incumbent upon you to do the research, to have the knowledge base to back up exactly, why you're providing an athlete with the program that they're on, or be able to answer questions that parents or other coaches have. And if you don't, I mean, then, obviously you find yourself in a sticky situation where, who knows, maybe the parents geeked out on strength conditioning and they know more than you. They've done more research than you, and maybe it's the wrong research. But, I think the other part of that too, the other caveat is being able to maintain the respect of, whether it's another coach or the athlete's parent or something. You want to tread a very thin line and make sure that you're able to maintain that respectful professional relationship. So it's not like a fuck you. It's like, you're able to educate each other and hopefully, maintain that professional sort of interaction.
So my experience with this is when I coached a Pee Wee football league, of all things. Like, you would think the parents are committed to just having these kids have a good time, not get hurt, but there was a coach or a parent who started off as a defensive coordinator. And this was a relatively high-level Pee Wee football league in the Midwest. And it was like it's a prep or feeder system to high school football. So like there's high school coaches scouting these games. It's starting to be almost like Texas down in the Midwest. Anyways, the guy who was the head coach was this PR rep, and like a pretty high level PR rep, and he represented some high government officials. And this assistant coach was just calling plays. He would call, like, his plays for these kids were like backyard blitz. Bring them all of them to the right. You know what I mean? It was like we were playing backyard football, but at the end of the day, it's relatively organized football. I mean, there's offensive systems that you have to adapt to, and the coach ended up asking me to jump in and be the defensive coordinator, and he had to fire this guy. Now, this guy rallied up a team of parents about how, I was inexperienced and I'm young and I don't know how to manage people because, this guy's had management experience. And basically the combo that we had is we had like a good cop, bad cop, where my coach, he's like, what you're doing is working. Do what you're doing. And let me handle everybody else. And he kind of just stepped in, and his strategy was making promises to try and address the situation. And then he'd come back, let me know what the concerns are, see if there's a way that I can mask what the concerns are and pretend to make adjustments, but continue to get the success. And at the end of the day, it became personal in the sense that this guy didn't care about whether or not the team performed well. He cared about his ego, his personal ego, and the fact that he got kicked off this Pee Wee football team for a 21-year-old kid who, showed up with bloodshot eyes every Saturday morning and smelled like Budweiser. But I guess that's not really ethical, is it? Disregard that last statement. I didn't say it was me. I'm just saying there could have been a person like that.
Erroneous.
But so if you have that good cop, bad cop scenario where you have someone who understands it and can manage the drama and step in, really what it looks like here in this question, and Jared sent out a little heads up that his name is Milky. I butchered it, but so Jared, I don't know if you have the athletes yet, or you're trying to sell the parents. So trying to sell the parents, you're gonna have anybody who's worked sales will tell you to promise anything, promise everything. Just promise them, tell them what they want to hear,
Yep.
and get them in your door.
Yep.
And then then once you get them in the door, then you have a whole other skill set or a whole other personnel that's there to really manage the customer and keep the customer satisfied while you do your thing. Because the salesperson is going to promise you everything, knowing that you have a very specific system that yields results, and you're going to just tell them what they want to hear. And then when they get in the door, do what you know works. We know our program works. We know balancing volume intensity works. We know training movement patterns and energy systems appropriately works. We will produce results. But you're just going to have to either be the guy, put on the different hat, or find somebody, a partner that's going to be able to kind of manage the relationship.
And dealing with some of the collegiate athletes that I've dealt with on a one-on-one basis, their their personalities are so strong. I have had parents call me religiously every day, whether their child had a session or not, to ask me, how their child's doing, exactly what I'm doing with them, and it's kind of crazy. I'm like, hey, well, I haven't trained your kid in a couple of days. Nothing's changed since yesterday, But as you guys know, part of coaching, so much of that is just like that quote unquote managing the experience, and it's a real challenge, and for me in terms of like patience and being able to manage that experience for the parent and comfort them and coddle them. And then it's, then you have to also have a different persona when you're dealing with the athlete as well. But that's a huge part of the learning curve too. It's just fucking dealing with like people's emotions, and when their money and their time is invested and their kids are invested, they're living, and they're living vicariously through their children. It just becomes this very complicated matrix, and so you just do the best you can, and I don't think there's any like silver bullet, but Tex, you had some good points, like you kind of hit the nail on the head.
And yeah, just took 3 quick notes of what y'all said, and then it's trying to manage the experience, and you're selling either the science, the safety to parents, or performance to the kids. So find out which works best for the coach, the parent, the kid that you're talking to, and then have the knowledge to back up that kind of that sell.
So, Jared, if there's anything else, let us know through Q&A. And I'm going to go ahead and out Jared that he put the best-looking seminar or podcasting was Callie. So, Callie, another one of your loyal followers.
Yeah, just another.
Is he the guy who asked for the autographed shirt?
I don't know. There's too many people asking for autographed shirts. It's weird. And they want me to wear the shirt before I send it out, which is also super weird, but it's whatever.
But she did it.
But I did it.
CrossFit.
It's a little bit in my DNA on every CrossFit football shirt.
So let's see. What else we got?
Can I just put one comment in on that last question?
Sure.
What Luke was saying about getting people on your side or to do some of the dirty work or talk good cop, bad cop, whatever, one of the other things you could try to do is if you even just get one other parent on board, oftentimes they can be your best ally because they can cut parents off at the pass. We do sports and conditioning. We're not on the field with a team per se, but if you get a parent who comes in and has sort of a question, what are they doing here? Oftentimes the parents who have been in the program for a while have seen the results. We don't even have to answer questions half the time because we've got that parent or that set of parents who are, hey, listen, it works. This is what they're doing. And oftentimes those parents who are on and trying to get after you, their concerns are quelled by other parents who say, like, look, my kid put on X number of pounds, got stronger, whatever. Rather than, it's like almost like they believe the other parents sometimes more than they believe the coach saying, listen to me, it's going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also a great point. And you could also implement a no spectator rule.
That's dicey. It's hard.
Yeah.
What, where they can't
Parents can't be there.
get out of line? Oh, they can't even be there?
Well, in college, if a coach is in a strength and conditioning session in the off season, it's considered a practice. So when you're dealing with sport coaches, just kind of use that. They can't be there, even though maybe high school rules are different.
Oh, I see what you're saying, Tex. So, like, if the sport coach, so you're talking from a different angle, you have a sport coach who's giving you shit about your training program in the off season, he can't even be there anyways.
Right.
Okay.
I
don't want your life.
You know, I like the idea of just being like over prepared, you know, doing all your research, backing up your program if you got all the results and it's successful and you can almost answer any question that's asked of you. That alone kind of like gives off this aura where, you know, that person who's questioning your knowledge, your authority, you know, whatever you want to call it, within like a few minutes of listening to your answer, they're going to know, like, man, you know what, I should just shut the fuck up and let this guy do his job.
Yeah.
You know, or they're not. Or it's that person who's got the ego, you know, maybe he couldn't score that final touchdown on the last drive in his high school game or whatever. It's eating at him. You know, he could just have some deep-rooted issues. But
he might need a psychologist. But, yeah, Denny, you're right. We used to say in my PhD program, if somebody doesn't believe what you're saying, then dazzle them with data. And that's it. I mean, if you can throw data at them.
Dazzle them with data.
Full citation, okay? Yeah, I mean, if you can dazzle them with data, I think most reasonably intelligent people are going to step back and say, wow, these
throw out a couple big words.
Throw in a couple words that they can't pronounce. They need to like Google pronunciation it, and all of a sudden they're going to step back. Except for that, like you said, Denny, it's going to be that one parent. In which case, you might just have to say, "Go fuck yourself." Like it works. If you want your kid in the program, so it's either dazzle them with data or go fuck yourself, right?
Well, I mean, in perhaps a more tactful manner.
I do not recommend that. Yeah.
But yes, I know what you mean, Steve. Like, be like, hey, this is it, or hit the road. And a good place to start too.
Yeah, you're going to read that person depending on how they come up to you. If they come up all like freaking hollering, you know, you're going to know right away that you got to deal with an asshole.
Mm-hmm. And a good place to start to anticipate what you're going to hear is the series that Tex wrote on the fallacies of high school strength and conditioning, because that's all the old school thinking, you know. So read through that and see if any of these arguments are perpetual arguments that come up, and there's some good information to combat that. That it should get you started, and you know, Tex cites his sources. So pick up a book, find the frickin' page, and go, or just digest the whole thing. Yeah.
All right.
So that's in terms of if you're leaving here and you know you're gonna market to a bunch of parents and you're anticipating the shit you're gonna hear. Go read those articles. Seriously, go read those articles. Go buy those books and arm yourself with the science. You know. That would be my advice.
It's good stuff. All right, guys.
I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get Bobby on here. We seem to be having some trouble connecting, but we can still move forward and talk about the article if you want.
Okay. Well, some of the like bullet points, if you will, that stuck out in the second article. I like the phrase, "The hands are the end of the kinetic chain."
Yeah, me too. That's such a money phrase, and actually, I mean, it's I guess if you're within the grip circle, it's a pretty commonly used phrase. But I hadn't heard it until a few years ago when Bobby was introducing me to a lot of grip work, and as soon as I heard it, I was just like, oh, that makes so much sense. You know, just your ability to apply force on any object. You know, you think about sledgehammer strikes or really anything, even like doing muscle ups or a bar muscle up or anything where your hands are involved. If you can pull on something like a snatch or anything like that and be able to utilize the end of your kinetic chain or strengthen that, it's gonna be able to, you know, put you in a position to throw more weight around. So that definitely resonated with you. I'm glad to see that was like sort of like a standout point. And I guess it does kind of go along with your second thing that you have here, which is the psychological effect that grasping or gripping has on the brain. I mean, and I use the example in the article, which is, you know, powerlifting in the past, I really hadn't made that mind-muscle connection. I would grasp the bar, I would, you know, thumb around the bar in my training, but I wasn't really utilizing that mind-muscle connection of when you're coming out of the hole, really pushing up on the bar. And that's something that we talk a lot about in the seminar as well, is even if just for almost, I won't even say placebo effect, because it does have a reaction to it, but it allows you to think about bracing the back and really driving up on the bar. You know, if elbow position is ideal, if the torso is upright, and you can really push up on the bar, it does create sort of that mental up or like aggressive sort of bounce out of the bottom movement. So do you guys use that in your training?
Absolutely. Bench pressing, right? Break the bar in half, get a fucking good grasp on that bar. It just kind of sets like the whole mentality, like, you know, it's on. We're going to do it. I always tell, you know, my people, I'm like, leave your freaking finger imprints on that iron, you know? I want you to freaking crunch the bar. And it sets their wrists, because one thing I'll see, and it's more common in women, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but we're talking about the bench press, that bar will sit back on their hands, and they're almost in like that rack position with you know, like the palms up kind of a thing. And it's like, if I say squeeze the bar, grip that bar hard, you can see it brings their wrists up into a stronger position, you know, for like a more safe movement.
Right, turns on the lats too. You know, you bring up an excellent point with regard to women, because that actually is true. I mean, in general, chicks are weaker than men, but I find that a lot of women have weaker wrists. And not to say men don't as well. I mean, you take like a group of men over the age of 40, and you'll see their wrists are wrapped in almost every exercise. But I find that chicks are much more prone to, very early in their CrossFitting or strength training, start to use wrist wraps, because they're uncomfortable. You know, they're not comfortable being uncomfortable, you know? And I think that there's a happy medium there. I mean, there's wrist development. You can apply some of these exercises that we put in the article, and as well as just like that muscle endurance or that strain that's necessary in something like an overhead squat or a handstand push-up. Don't just automatically throw on wrist straps. I mean, that shit just drives me insane. You know your body, but you know, try to get at least the first set without wrist wraps, just to develop that strength and stability, because as we know, that's going to transfer to everything else, like the bench press, like the handstand push-up, you know, to like more muscle endurance stuff, like any overhead pressing, if you're doing high rep overhead pressing and stuff like that. So yeah, that's an excellent point. And you know, I'm sure you guys see as well some athletes who, particularly in the squat, it drives me nuts when I see athletes pulling down on the bar in a squat. And it's pretty common, I think, in amateur-ish athletes who haven't been training that long, but as soon as you teach them to actually drive up on the bar, you see a big change in the speed out of the bottom. Do you guys have any athletes who are like pulling on it or rest their arms on it?
I'm trying to think.
It's common with the thumb over.
Yeah, sure. With
Okay.
with a more of an open grip. Yeah, a lot of guys will do that.
Yeah, like that thumb over, really wide, grabbing it out by the collars.
And some of that is shoulder flexibility, you know. If you can bring your hands into something that looks more like the top of a pull-up, then, you know, we advocate that. But a lot of it is like some guys just can't get their palms around the bar, their thumbs around the bar, because it creates too much torque in the shoulder, which is, you know, an interesting problem to have. But it's if you don't have the ability to grasp the bar with thumb around it, you're not going to really have the ability to push up on it. So you have to tackle one before the other. If it's shoulder issues, then you need to obviously tackle that so that you can grasp the bar, then bring the hands in, then be able to add force. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then another thing on that pulling on the bar. One thing, I mean, we get to see thousands of people squat 3RMs, and the guys that I see that say pulling down on the bar helps, helps them squat, are the guys who cannot depress their shoulders when they push up. Okay, so think about that. So they're going into shoulder elevation when they push up on the bar, and that's going to roll that bar forward on them and help them pitch forward. What you should be doing as you drive up into that bar and you're punching up into that bar out of the hole is you should be setting your shoulders down to still maintain that rigid platform that you're squatting off of. So through the whole range of movement for your back squat, your shoulders should be retracted and depressed and creating a super, super rigid platform. But what these people can't dissociate is when they push up, they release that shoulder. That's why when they push down, it's like forcing their shoulders into a good position. But that's ultimately what's keeping them from squatting more as well. So just a little tip for you power athlete listeners out there, all 15 of you.
Hell yeah. We had 17 at one point.
We did.
That's a PR.
Screenshot that. So I'm pretty sad that we can't have Bobby on here to talk more about it, but he really is he was a protege of the Part 1 guy, Jed Johnson, who is a competitor, and Bobby's done some competitions as well within that grip world. But some good points that he had were we need to work our extensors, and so we do so much gripping on the bar and so much pulling, and this is also something that we reiterate in the seminar as well, is just having that extensor work is great. It's great for muscle balance. It's great to essentially train, I guess, that the antagonist muscles to all the pulling that we do and all the gripping, clenching. And it's interesting too, kind of anecdotally, I was training with Chris, who trains here out of Balboa today, and it was just like a miserable day of pulling and holding on to things and lots of just very grip intensive stuff, weighted pull-ups, lots of stuff.
And he's got a pre-existing wrist
and
deal.
He has a wrist issue, which he's been like struggling with for a couple months now, and he went through some extensor exercises, and he said he's been implementing them for a couple days now, and it's like night and day. It has this rehabilitation quality to it that has really, really helped, I guess, strengthen that antagonist type of that flexion that's caused in his wrist when he's doing things like overhead squats or handstand push-ups. And so, to me, that in and of itself is just like, it's just such a great point. And that if there's anything, if you look at the program that Bobby put together very kindly for Power Athlete, if you look at the program, we're suggesting that you do the crush and the pinching on push days. So when you've got push stuff going on, maybe squatting or pressing. And then day 3, when you're working on wrist stuff, that can be done on a pulling day. And so that's kind of the layout we have, and intentionally adding extensor work every day. So if you find that is some of your grip is sort of your limiting factor, you're battling some wrist issues because of, who knows, maybe you're gearing up for the open and doing a lot more, overhead squats or handstands or whatever the case may be. If you're dealing with wrist issues, then throw in some extensor work, put some bands around your fingers. There's plenty of little videos that we threw in here to guide you, I guess, to train that grip and not make it a limiting factor, not make it a point of injury.
If you're listening now, you can do it. Just put your hands to your side and pull your knuckles back, your wrists into flexion.
Yeah.
Yep. And so like the opposite of like over the top.
Extension.
So you want to extend. So pull. So don't over the top. Just hands at your side. Pull your wrist back, and then make a fist, and then spread your fingers.
So I think maybe Bobby can chime in if he has the old Q&A up on the side. I believe he called, what are they called? Kadaya killers?
Yeah, Kadaya killers. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had me do those, and I think we went through, I don't know, maybe like 8 minutes of these Kadaya killer things. Fucking 8 minutes of the worst fucking pain of my entire life.
Let's do like a little Tabata.
Yeah, it was horrendous, and he purposely, like, there was like maybe like a small, this is in DC, it's like a small group of people forming around me because it was pretty obvious that I was about to start crying, and he wouldn't let me quit, and he's kind of a hard ass. But if you guys haven't done those Kadaya killers, they're unweighted, just kind of extension, flexion movements, using the wrist, using the fingers, the palm, and the thumb as well. There's this one where if you take your thumb and you bring it across to try to touch the, I guess, insertion point of your pinky, and then back out as aggressively as possible while still trying to keep your hand open. So think about that. Thumb goes across to the finger, and the pinky insertion point, and then you open up as violently as possible without clenching or closing your fist. Now, if you do that as fast as you can for 60 seconds, Luke, you got to touch here.
I can't.
You have to.
But I can't.
If you do that for 60 seconds straight, your face will contort in a way that you've never seen. But yeah, I mean, the long and the short of it is, Bobby works with a lot of CrossFit athletes out of Praxis, in DC, and this is his wheelhouse, and this is how he's become so proficient in grip, and he's transferred that to he does jiu-jitsu competitively, and so throwing some around by their gi, holding good guard, different things like that. There's definitely application to sport in lots of realms.
Yeah, I use what's up?
Go Tex.
I use the Kadai Killers a lot when I was working with the crew team, and so I split it up, and I only had 2 days a week with them, and then one day we do the eccentric, concentric, like just Kadai Killers in different positions, like arms like bench press, arms like extended press, and the opposite day we focused on isometric grip work. So I just want to throw that word out there. I know it's lost in a lot of training. And,
isometric?
Yeah, just it's
not sexy. You know why? Because nobody wants to stand around and watch someone hold a position.
Yeah, it's not sexy, but it needs to be done. And I think the bringing attention to grip work kind of gets that isometric back involved.
It's like eating your vegetables. I trained Alan Greenspan, and anything that he didn't like to do, he would just say, "Oh, it's just like eating your vegetables."
The
Clearly not paleo
guy.
What's that?
The Federal Reserve guy?
Yeah, chairman of the Federal Reserve. That's right. If he's listening right now, hey,
No
Alan.
shit.
Hey, Dr.
I've read some of his
Greenspan.
articles. Like he was really big with like Ayn Rand's objectivism and stuff. And
Yes,
I
Denny,
got pretty
you are a
heavy into that at one time.
multifaceted. You're a multifaceted man. I had
dude
no
was
idea.
a badass. One of my favorite guys. I'm surprised, or it's just cool to hear that you worked with him.
Yeah.
Callie would wear his sweaty shirts afterwards.
Right. Steve, maybe you could just kind of end the segment with like some of the I remember in one of the other podcasts you were just kind of going through like human ancestry about like grip training and how it evolves as you evolve.
Yeah, I think that might have been John, but okay.
Well, no, you were talking about, remember like the baby hanging on to the mother?
Oh,
like,
yeah. I mean, that's like a natural thing. One of the things I wanted to comment on, what Callie said earlier about, generally speaking, men are stronger than women, and that comes to grip too, and that weak strength. I think there's a developmental critical period for grip strength training. And I think little boys do a lot of it because they climb trees and like swing bats at each other and shit like that. And maybe, I'm not going to say all little girls, but most little girls probably aren't hanging from trees and that sort of thing. So I think that can account for some of the sex difference. But also, I mean, we're basically designed to grab things. So if you take an infant and you touch the middle of their palm, I mean, they could be hours old. The first thing they do is grab a hold because being a primate, if you don't grab onto mom's fur or skin or whatever, you're going to be left for dead and you're going to die. So grip is so important, and we fail to train it a lot. But grip strength is really outside of training. During development, it has strong connections with parts of the brain called the motor cortex, and it's a really good indicator for things like longevity and things that we might be more interested in, like neuropsychiatric longevity. So people who have strong grip strength, as measured by not things like plate pinches or what have you, but this thing called a dynamometer, which is basically like a whole hand trigger you pull, and it has a little lever that goes over. People who score high on that are significantly less at risk for things like heart disease, pulmonary disease, osteoporosis, development of Alzheimer's, depression, anxiety. I mean, the link between your grip strength and the brain is really well known scientifically. How it's linked up neurologically is not all that clear. But yeah, so it's super important. I mean, grip is part of what we did as monkeys, right? As primates, we were swinging through trees. So one of the things I wanted to comment too is one of the most common fatigued groups I see in the CrossFit community when I'm training my athletes and I'm having them do kettlebell swings or kettlebell snatches or pull-ups. At the end of it, I'd say 60 to 80% of them say, man, my grip is smoked. And I'm like, your grip? And when we go back to that first point, which is it's the end of the kinetic chain, I mean, if there's any weak link in that chain, it's going to break down all the things we talk about, which are movement, posture, position, efficiency, whatever. So I hate that, and I try to get my athletes to do all kinds of grip work. And those articles, Callie, I've got to give you props. They're awesome. And for Bobby Goodfellow, the demonstrations of those, how to implement them into training, have been fantastic, and they are brutal. I've been sitting here doing the thumb touches and contorting my face. Thank goodness this isn't a video podcast, because then I wouldn't be as pretty as I normally am.
Well, I told you, and kind of to segue this into, I guess, what we're going to talk about next is, I mean, we've been finding in our own training that grip is a huge limiting factor in terms of, like, repeating reps, just like the ability to hang on to a bar, the ability to do multiple snatches. And, you know, just wanted to address that because I know for the majority of people, you know, not only is grip heavily important in sport, but, you know, a lot of people are just your average CrossFitter, and, you know, we want to set people up for success going into the open, trying to create a little bit of muscle endurance. Is that what we were on to next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's say that we made it through the open and our performance was good enough to get us to the regionals. How would we go about adjusting the program if we're following like a power athlete CrossFit football program? You know, what are some things maybe that we could start implementing? You know, I know on the last show, Callie, you had said, you know, you're going to have to start working on your skill work, right? Faux show. Faux show, dude.
Yeah, this is where, you know, again, it's going to be, let's just say you have your skill work dialed and you can get 40 unbroken muscle ups, but you can barely squat your body weight. Like, you see, your training doesn't really change out of the, I guess, the CrossFit football, answer that phone, the CrossFit football training stimulus, you know what I mean? So it's going to depend on the type of athlete you are. But assuming you've made it through the open, you have a high capacity at body weight exercises and what I will refer to as submaximal high volume work. Agreed? Do we agree on that?
Agreed.
I mean, yeah, you have to keep the volume high, yes, I think, going into it.
The volume doesn't... Go on.
They're completely two different sports. You're just doing one workout a week for 5 weeks, and then you have 8 weeks before you have to perform 3 days, 3 workouts a day.
Yeah, I think having days where you have multiple workouts is huge.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
that's not every day. Don't interpret that as 2 days.
No,
3 days.
I'm saying maybe you choose 2 days a week where you have multiple workouts, and I'm not talking about 20-minute workouts either. 10 minutes max. Repeat that 2 to 3 times, and you know that's a great way to add volume and stress the system going into something like regionals. I personally do think, you know, your ability to perform skill under fatigue is pretty important. I would say that's the difference between regionals. The Open. I think the Open is
you going fresh.
Is muscle endurance city. It's just muscle endurance city. It's like very few skills are involved. You have to have a base level of strength, but yeah, I mean.
And some of the stuff you're probably going to see in regionals is some sort of lift ladder, whether it's like a deadlift, or an overhead squat, or a power clean, or
every 90 seconds, every 60 seconds, every 30 seconds.
With double unders.
Yeah.
You know? And then you're also going to see...
I mean, the double unders are, back to what we were talking about in the beginning, is to tax a different system. So they're going to tax you by load and your metabolics, right?
Yes, exactly. They're going to do pre-fatigue or pre-exhaustive training on your aerobic and glycolytic pathways, and then they're going to force you to do like a double. So you got to be able to operate in that environment. Your training should replicate that. You're going to see more. You're going to see equipment you don't see in a garage gym. So you're going to see rope climbs. You're going to see.
That would be a skill, and that's kind of what I mean. And then things like heavy dumbbell snatches. You know, that's not something we traditionally see in the Open, but you see that in regionals a lot. Super heavy dumbbell snatches, and what else, man?
It's just the volume stays the same, intensity increases, and the amount of work you have to do in 3 days is,
insane
relative to the open.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think one of the things you have to take into consideration if you make it to regionals too is not only increasing volume, but being able to know a lot about your recovery in between multiple workouts a day. I think a lot of people, when they sign up for these weekend warrior CrossFit competitions or throwdowns or whatever the heck you call them, they take for granted that they do 1 hour-long class. They get on a weekend, they've got maybe 3 workouts in a day or 4 workouts across a weekend, and they are just destroyed because they've changed their diet, they haven't thought about recovery, mobility in between workouts, that sort of thing. So that's also something that I think has to be incorporated. Not increasing volume is one thing, but increasing volume at the risk of injury or sort of going off the reservation is probably not something you want to do if you're going to get in there and perform well. I think recovery is something that people have to think about as well.
Oh, recovery,
huge, dude. That's huge.
A training approach that you can take if going to the regionals, you should know you're going to the regionals during the open. So after you perform the open workout, then you need to rest and then maybe do a snatch ladder. So you have 5 opportunities to go in 100% fatigued and then perform. So that could be a way to approach the regionals. But, you got to make it there first.
So,
sorry, I was just gonna say, and then one huge factor is just like the elephant in the room, which is don't get fucking injured before you go. I mean, I think that's like the biggest part of the training is just making sure, kind of going along with the recovery stuff. It's just you've just got to make it a priority to take care of your body and do the mobility and do whatever's necessary. I don't know. I think
massage, stretching,
exactly. Whatever it takes, because increasing skill work and volume and all that stuff leading up to it is just, you see people maybe who don't have the appropriate programming or training start to fall apart, and that's, obviously that's real tragedy if you've made it and then you become injured or have some sort of overuse injury going into regionals.
Do you want to go in? Do you want to peak during the regionals, or do you want to kind of be at like 80% at the regionals? Say the ultimate program is like the games. You're going to start with the open, you're going to hit the regionals, then you're going to go to California. Obviously, you would want to peak.
Me personally, I want to stub my toe in the parking lot and then say I'm injured but get all the free stuff and not actually compete. No.
Well, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, Kelly, that sounds awesome. I think when it comes across the idea of peaking, that's a hard one.
I kind of feel like I saw that last year. Like I saw some of the athletes who I kind of thought was really going to go in and put out a good performance. It's like they did real good in the regionals and then just didn't have it at the games. And I wondered then when I watched it, like, man, maybe they peaked too early, or maybe by the time they get there, you're hammered to shit because of all the volume and the the workouts and stuff.
Were the 49ers thinking they're going to save some so they can peak for the Super Bowl?
Right. I hope not. I hope you just put it all out there and then kind of, deal with the recovery the best you can afterwards and not hold back.
But then after regionals, you have 8 to 12 weeks to prepare for the games. After the Open, 6 to 8, depending on when your regionals are, to prepare for the regionals. So that's enough time to recover, reprogram, and then hit realization, to steal an old school periodization word, to peak for each of those different competitions.
Yeah, Denny, your training has to be conducive to the domain that you're going to be competing in. So I guess what that means is your training should ramp up, but that's on a long timeline. You should be ready to do 3 workouts in 3 days in a weekend at any day, but you shouldn't have to do 3 workouts a day for 3 days to prepare for 3 workouts. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like at the end of the day, you're going to be dosed with this high set of volume, and everybody is. And due to the volume, you will have performance degradation across the board for every athlete, typically. Like, I don't know if we put, like, were people PRing the girls that one year when they did like 3 girls in a row with 1 minute rest in between?
I don't remember. I'm sure there were people PRing though. I mean,
fuck those people.
I mean, you know,
Exactly.
you see athletes PR after a triathlon on their clean and jerk. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's there's a lot of other factors that go into it, but I don't think peaking necessarily is the right term.
Yeah.
Because you know that indicates, like, I think that specifically in my mind is tracked to strength training, and there's just so much else involved with ramping up volume and multiple workouts. So I mean, you
should be cycling volume and intensity to prepare for a multi-day event, and that's going to be individualized. And it's not like a peaking deal, but you should be cycling the volume and intensity to prepare for that multi-day event, and that's going to be based off the athlete. So, and that's what Callie's talking about, like throwing in multi-workout days, maybe every 10 days to start, then you go every 5 days for a block, and then you're ready to rock. You know what I mean? It's going to be trial and error. A lot of the people who get there, it's a multiple attempt before you kind of dial in your programming and understand what it takes. So, you know, the programs that we put together for a team up in where was the team John was programming for? I think they were out of Oregon, and then we had a couple. We had Zach Forrest, we had China Cho, all training 1 year. All their programming was different. Each of their programs were different. They were loaded differently based off of volume.
and because the recovery was different.
Yeah,
you know?
they all made it to regionals. And then I think Zach got beat by Spieler for the games that year.
Yeah.
You know, it was just it's based off those individuals. But either way, it was you know, they were longer training sessions. Low volume skill work was always coupled with application of the skill the following training day, either in a volume or intensity setting. So, you know, working on the movements without stress, then reinforcing movement patterns with stress type deal. So that was a strategy we took with those guys. And then pre-fatigue, perio-fatigue in terms of throwing in airdyne, throwing in double unders, all that type of stuff. Like, you just got to be ready, like Callie said, prepare yourself to do this stuff fatigued, but be safe about it, because, you know, the last thing we want anyone to do is get hurt trying to train.
In training.
It's good stuff.
It is good stuff.
All right. Want to finish with anything else?
Yeah, we got a couple things we could jump on real quick. Let's save that for next time.
Yeah, I'm going to. But I just wanted to tell him it because I think he's listening.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I just wanted to tell, we had a submission. I originally told this guy we might actually be able to get to it today. But Pete Pavlik, if you're listening, listen next week. Next week, right? Yeah. We'll be able to answer your question. He had a question about training his wife and getting her on CrossFit Football and a little bit of the female experience with the program. So we'll tackle that next week.
And then we have a couple other Q&As submitted. Our boy Taylor.
Hey guys, before we get into that, I'm going to have to duck out because my kid's escaping from his bedroom.
You're dead to me.
All right, Steve.
Tell me something I don't know, Callie, okay? I'll catch up with you guys next week, all right?
Yeah.
Bye.
Steve.
So Taylor got called out the other day by a trainer that was training a client for fat loss. And this guy studies kinesiology and was taught to train fat loss at a certain percentage of intensity, which is relatively low intensity for a longer time period. So Taylor disagrees. He said that this supposedly has been proven. What is our thought on training an athlete for fat loss?
Oh, like steady state cardio?
Yeah, so I don't know.
He was called out because he was doing that or was not? Or someone said...
He probably said, hey, I'm trying to lean this guy out, and he was probably doing like a CrossFit style model.
Oh, Taylor was doing a CrossFit style model.
And this guy's like, dude, you're doing it wrong. You got to do steady state. So Taylor, if you want to clarify what the hell's going on, we're making some assumptions.
There's a couple of factors to that. I mean, I think it matters to take into account who you're training. So let's imagine this person is, let's say she's a 5'8" female who is 330 pounds. Well, maybe steady state cardio has a place in her training out the get-go. I mean, if this person, though, is, depending on how much weight they have to lose and their ability to get into position, then you can put them into maybe some more of metabolic type training. I would even, I'd venture to say that if they're capable, a step in between that is going to be, an interval type trairing and something that's like low impact. And anybody who's in the strength and conditioning world or the personal training world or whatever knows that there are these order of operations that you go through, these assessments to make sure that, this person can get into good position. And then you basically dial up the intensity from there. But what I'd say, as well as, we know that metabolic conditioning, it allows us to maintain some muscle mass. You can do strength training beforehand and then have that metabolic effect and also that post-workout effect where you're basically burning more calories for longer post-workout than you would be if you were doing 60 minutes on a treadmill. You hop off and the metabolic effect is not the same. You're not burning as many calories post-workout.
And here, in terms of adipose fat tissue loss, that is a product of caloric expenditure exceeds caloric intake. And any sort of work will expend calories in the sense of steady state cardio, interval training, or even weightlifting.
Sure.
That's how lean gains works, right? Lean gains is lift weights, steady state cardio. And yes, it's proven. Every method is proven. And if this guy's like CrossFit doesn't work or CrossFit style of training doesn't work, have him turn on the CrossFit Games and look at the abs on these people. I mean, there's amazing before and after pictures out of probably every single CrossFit gym. So it all works, but what you're talking about is accelerated. I mean, people want it to work fast, right? Yeah. And, that's neither way is better than the other unless it works faster. And no matter what you do with like an extremely overweight person, let's say, what was the example? I
said like 5'8", 300 pounds.
Yeah. Any sort of work expenditure for them is going to elicit.
Put them in caloric deficit.
Yeah, a weight loss response and put them in caloric deficit.
Assuming they're nutrition.
Changing their diet.
Yeah.
And they're sleeping. So that's where I would go with that. And if you're looking for a different text, I'm going to let you go in a second. If you're looking for a different argument, let us know. But go ahead, Tex, pile on to what we're talking about.
I know where he's coming from thinking-wise. Taylor, I would ask him why he feels that way or what data. And then it's thinking that low heart rate zone, you can work out for an hour versus doing a 15-minute CrossFit workout. So his thinking is they're doing more work, but like Callie touched on, just that metabolic rate, how much work is truly being done, how many calories are being burned afterwards. So, I would just engage him in a conversation instead of feel like it's an attack.
Yeah, and another benefit to steady state cardio is you can do it every single day.
Yeah.
It's not extremely taxing on your central nervous system. You can do an hour a day for every day on a Aerodyne, on a treadmill, on an elliptical, and ultimately increase your work output and putting yourself in a caloric deficit, which would cause fat loss.
Yeah, while maintaining strength. So that's why you see a lot of power lifters or O-lifters who have to cut weight doing like steady state walking or incline walking because it's repeatable and it doesn't really detract from your strength workout.
Yeah, guys like The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
And Luke Summers.
You guys just compare me to The Rock?
No, nobody did that.
What? I heard it.
Dude, he's in like every single freaking movie. You go through Netflix and like he's almost in every single movie. You want your movie to be successful? Put The Rock in it.
Are you logged into Luke's account?
Yeah. I just watched, what's it called, Empire or Empire State of Mind or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that on Netflix.
Yeah, he's like, he takes a smaller role where he's like the cop, you know what I mean?
Makes it a blockbuster hit.
Yeah, but I bet you it's a blockbuster hit.
So Taylor got back to us. He said he's training someone on an amateur progression with high-intensity conditioning, and the person needs to lose roughly 100 pounds. I guess my question to him would be, and how long? You know, like, can they show up and can they train every day? I don't think weightlifting is going to be detrimental to the long-term objective, but if you find your athlete or your client can't show up the next day because the high-intensity training is too
Intense.
intense or taxing, throw in some steady-state cardio.
Yeah.
If
they're like, I'm so sore because we did, you know, if this person's has
thrusters
100
and push-ups.
Yeah, they were just doing even just like high rep body weight squats. I mean, there's a time and a place for like a steady state cardio as a recovery, and then just to create like that caloric deficit. And so I don't think that the number one factor here is that Taylor knows what the fuck he's talking about, and he doesn't need to justify it to this other guy. I mean, he knows what he's doing, and he's got the client's best interest at heart. Assuming, you know, this person doesn't sound like they're training for performance at this point. They're training to get healthy and get in shape, and he's doing his job, and I think he's probably doing it fine. And so if somebody's giving him a hard time, just, you know, if I can tell him it's not his client, you know.
And in terms of like a completely different aspect of it, it's fucking fun and people like it.
Yes, that's the other side.
And because no one wants to fucking sit on a treadmill for an hour. Dude, I ran on a treadmill the other day for 1 minute. 1 minute. And it fucking felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
I hate to tell you, Luke, that was 45 seconds. So.
That was 20 seconds. So that's, I guess, Taylor, you know, like either way it's going to work. But, you know, I like Tex's approach, which he's like, you know, the slow and steady type guy. Talk to the guy and see, you know, just say, okay, let's talk about results and let's talk what the strategy is. And, you know, it's best to make friends, not enemies in that situation, because ultimately you could show him that your method works as well, and then you got an ally in training, you know.
Sure, and just based on my experience, because Taylor, I've definitely been there, like I know exactly what situation you're talking about, but based on my experience, just don't fuck this person up. Like, don't injure them because you want them to perform some sort of CrossFit movements. Luckily, I haven't had many injuries in the course of my career, but don't be so keen on CrossFit that you have them getting out of good position. You know, take the most basic movements. If this person is 100 pounds overweight, just get them to do some of that interval style training with movements that look good, and they'll stay safe and healthy. You know, you want this person to have longevity in this sport, and you want them to lose weight. They're not training to go and to regionals, you know.
And he's saying, what's the best to use? And I'm assuming the best for accelerated fat loss. It doesn't. They're both going to work. I'm assuming you have an hour training session. Make sure they're lifting weights. I think that there's an absolute benefit to lifting weights and putting this person on an amateur progression. You're going to, regardless of their fat loss goals.
Yep.
Okay. Don't get fixated necessarily on the scale, because you may put 40 pounds of muscle on this person. Then all of a sudden you're grossing out at like 150 pounds of loss.
Hopefully that is not the case.
Who knows?
I don't think that that's possible. But you know, if you have this person 4 times a week, do 2 days of metabolic conditioning, 2 days of different interval on like an incline treadmill, something that's not as exciting but is still pertinent, and allows for a little recovery. If you have them 3 days a week, I'd still say 2 days metabolic, 1 day. There have been times where I'd literally just in the city would take people out for a long walk. We'd stop and we'd do some mobility stuff. We'd stop and we'd do, you know, some stretching and stuff, and continue that walk, change the pace. And yeah.
And they can do that on their off days, because again, think about the energy systems you're taxing. If you do a 45-minute walk at a brisk pace, maybe on an incline or something like that, you're really just going to be tapping into that oxidative system, and you won't be stressing your glycolytic or phosphagen pathways, which you're going to be using for maybe your intervals on Thursday. So it's going to, you know, have them do that stuff perhaps as homework. There's value to including that stuff. There's merit to it, but at the end of the day, it's not the only way for fat loss. To me, the best way is the one that keeps the client healthy, keeps them safe, gets them the results they want, and keeps them fucking paying you or showing up to your class.
And if they're
you're
not
doing it
healthy,
volunteer.
they're not paying, and they're not coming.
So good luck with that, amigo. What else?
Is that it?
Danny, do we have any other? I have a couple other things here we could tackle real quick on the Q&A.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, we're in the closing.
All right, Mr. Jeff Lee wants to know, will there be remote coaching under the paid section of PowerAthlete.com? I suspect that will be a huge success. I don't even know what remote coaching necessarily means, but I guess where that would come into play is the forums. So there's going to be different levels of forums, and any of the remote coaching would be in terms of us remote coaching, like me or Callie or Tex being assigned to a remote athlete to help follow a program and guide them. That would probably be done through the forums, and you would be able to see, let's say, it would be more assigned like a group of athletes. So this athlete, Callie's going to focus on a group of athletes with this training objective in mind, and she'll be the guide under that.
That circle.
Yeah, that circle. So that's how I perceive it. But what's the hardest thing we're going to get is people just are so fitness ADD. And
that I could give you like all the tools you needed, and if you are going off of Outlaw or you're following other programs at once, then if you're saying you're not seeing results because you're not following the program we provide,
yeah, that's the risk.
That's the risk, But
yeah, there will be some sort of remote coaching, and I think Ingo in the comments on this I talked about video coaching, and part of any sort of remote coaching would be providing feedback, understanding how the volume or intensity is affecting the athlete, dealing with individual orthopedic issues and injuries, and giving advice on mobility, and perhaps reviewing videos of lifts and giving you some drills, because no matter how remote and how virtual and how in your face we could be with your the Coach's Eye app or whatever, nothing can replace being 5 feet from you and hearing the barbell, seeing the movement, everything. You just can't replicate that in-person coaching. And so with that in mind, that by itself is going to be an inferior product to us just moving in with you and sleeping on your couch for 30 days, which is also going to be a product.
Which is why Tex is going to do it.
So that's going to be an option if you want us to just move in, make you breakfast, rub your back. So tackle that guy. The next one we have here is, has there been talk about a Power Athlete CrossFit football app? Yes. Next question. No, yes, there has been. There is a place for it in terms of it'll be available specifically to our Power Athlete subscribers on the PowerAthlete.com website, so it's going to be a private app at this point in the design phase, with potential of pushing it out as a public app. And what it's going to ultimately do is
have a little bit of dialogue
that
goes along with the workouts as well.
Yeah, so it's gonna be your guy or your
training
resource,
partner, essentially.
Yeah, your resource. We're gonna push out when your workout's ready. We're gonna push out a narrative that's audio, kind of like a coach's cast. We're gonna push out exclusive deals, let's say we get in our new Eat the Week shirts, or we get in our Go Fuck Yourself shirts, and you're into that type of thing. You're gonna have first bids on it. That's our way to kind of give these coaches and people who sign up, our athletes, exclusivity to a lot of the stuff we're gonna do. So we're gonna have coaches roundtable. We had a guy, Brian, was asking on the broadcast page, where's the video? Well, we're not going to broadcast video here, but on our Coaches Roundtable, we are going to have video. And that Coaches Roundtable is going to be limited attendees. We're going to cut it off at maybe 15 or 20, depending on the subject matter. And the people who are going to hear about it first are going to be the people who are the subscribers. And if it's subject matter that's pertinent to them, then they're going to sign up. And it's going to be first come, first served basis. And then once we announce it 24 hours later to the public, people are going to have kind of their exclusive access to those roundtables. And basically what the roundtables are going to be is programming clinics. It's going to be a squat clinic. It's going to be talk on volume intensity sprinting. Okay, we have an athlete who has we'll talk in depth about Coaches Roundtable on grip training.
Specialized athletes, Q&A.
Yeah, so I mean, we could spend the whole hour talking about fielding people's individual requests, evaluating what their programming looks like, and the best place to implement a lot of this stuff. So what you see on the Get a Grip Part 2 is assuming you have a program that is push-pull-split. Now, if you don't have a program that's push-pull-split, you need to reevaluate your programming. But like showing you where the best place to implement some skill work, some technique work, and even how to program, things like that. That's what's going to be in this app, as well as like it's basically going to be a broadcast of all the content on the website as well. So that's the deal with our Power Athlete app. That we're looking mid-year, maybe CrossFit Games time. Got to get that in development. So, and that's all I got on this end.
Cool. I just want to just kind of put it out there again that if we can get everybody who listens to the show on iTunes to throw in some comments, 5-star ratings. There was an improvement in the past week. I'm happy with that. Let's see if we can get some more comments in there and really get get the Power Athlete Radio at the top.
And also, if like there's not that I'm going to commit to making any enhancement, but if there's something you wish that we could do or you think would be cool that you see on other podcasts or we're missing out on, let us know. And if you want us to broadcast on something outside of iTunes, let us know. I know we're on a couple other podcast streams, but hit us up. We want to make this as accessible as possible to you guys. What else, Callie?
So I wanted to plug a competition that we're doing here in Huntington Beach. I know that we're kind of coming to a close here, so I wanted to just put out there that registration is now available. We'll link it up on the Power Athlete HQ site. We have this local comp in Huntington Beach, right on the beach. It's the first time, I know John mentioned last week, the first time that they've had this sort of quote-unquote CrossFitter, I guess, exercise competition that's been held here. So basically it's called Badges for Life, and it goes to benefit currently 2 charities. One of them is called COPS, and it's concerns of police survivors. So that's all of this goes 100% to charity. So that first charity is essentially to help families get back on their feet after they've lost a loved one in the line of duty. So undeniably a great cause. And the second charity is, of course, our own Wade's Wings, or Wade's Army. Wade's Army. And so we're going to just be cutting all of the proceeds 50-50. If you can make it to Huntington Beach or you're in California or close to the location, it's going to be a great, great weekend. And again, that's May 17th. And registration is available. It's teams of 4 people, 2 guys, 2 girls. If you are your armed forces or your police department or your law enforcement or fire department, you can sign up to be a part of a special division. And that division in and of itself is going to kind of compete against each other for bragging rights. So there's going to be a lot of fun events that day, and then I think at the end we're going to conclude it with like a party at the hotel across the street. It's pretty nice Hyatt, so I'm pretty stoked on that.
That's news to me.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Well, you're not invited. That's why it's news to you. So number 1, get signed up. Number 2, make sure you start tanning and get your abs in now, because it's going to be on the beach at Surf City, and we're pretty stoked on it.
Now, let's say you're a guy like Taylor, but even though Taylor's a broke college kid in Canada,
Taylor, come on.
He's not going to make it out to California. Can people contribute and donate?
Yes, absolutely. You can still contribute and donate. There is a spot for you to just donate, as well as if you want to volunteer. If you're not sure you want to compete, but you'd like to volunteer, we're going to be making announcements for volunteers or sponsor the event as well. You can come down and, if your business wants to be involved. It's an amazing cause, and I'm just thrilled to be involved in it because there's a lot of good people that we get to work with, and a lot of good families we get to touch, both through the fight against neuroblastoma and the COPS charity. So that's that.
That's awesome.
It is.
Great job. Good work with that. It's good charities. Both are good causes. All right, guys.
I'm good. What do we got next week?
Next week, we're going to talk about some preparation / strategies / dieting for the games. We can answer any questions between now and then regarding training for the Open or the regionals. I know there's a few submissions that we haven't gotten to by a couple of the listeners who had questions regarding the Open. You know, I mean, just because we talked about that in the last show doesn't mean we won't go back and answer any of those questions. So,
unless it's totally covered in the last show, you just
exactly. If it's the same thing, we won't. But anything new, of course.
Yeah, Denny, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, man. This podcast audience, I mean, they're animals.
Well, Luke and I will be hot off of a trip from Colombia, assuming we make it back. The drug cartels don't get us, whatever.
And employ us. I'm good with numbers.
So we'll have to wrap on that. We have a full cert out there. Should be pretty cool. I have never been to Colombia.
Yeah, Tex, it's another 14-hour travel day.
Oof.
So we got to pack up our Well Food Co. carne bars and shit and
meat cakes.
Yeah, meat cakes, and Callie's supposed to make a menu here.
No, I'm just bringing a burrito.
What? You sinner. Dude, so listen to this.
Oh,
Denny.
my God.
Okay.
There's no time for
Denny.
No time for
First of all,
Denny, me and
we
Callie
always
weigh
got time.
225, right? Callie and I both push about 100 kilos relative body weight. And we've been on this leaning out phase for the past, 8 weeks.
we should have taken some
through
photos.
Christmas. And, dude, I've been so dialed in, and I find out that Callie goes out to dinner with Tex, has a beer and a burrito.
Wait, whoa. The beer's true, but the burrito, it only had steak and guac in it. And nobody cares to hear about my fucking diet. We just lost one viewer.
I've been salting heads of lettuce. That's all I've been eating. Heads of lettuce, Denny.
It's gross,
Yeah.
man.
Which you have the body of a supple 15-year-old girl.
Yeah, guys are hitting on it.
Well, listen. Here's my contention: is that Luke's training is not nearly as hard as mine, and so he can live off things like heads of lettuce and saltines.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, we'll have our share of burritos in Colombia.
Oh, it's gonna be great.
Well, we'll talk to you guys next week. This has been another great podcast.
Yep. Leave us reviews, 5-star only, or we'll find you.
That's right. Remember, we'll send text after you.
Seriously, review us and give us pointers. We love that stuff.
All right, boys
For show.
and girls.
Yep.
Take care.
All right, guys. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, bye-bye.
See you in
Later.
hell.
Yep.